Alrighty, everyone. So we're going to get started because sales tax waits for nobody. So my name is Connor O'Donnell. I'm going to be leading you through this session here for the next couple minutes. I'm going to share my screen, and with how the screens are shared, I'm not actually going to be able to see the questions till after I finish sharing. So if you have any questions as we're rolling through this, put them in the Q&A, and we're going to have some dedicated time at the end of today's session in order to go through any questions that y'all might have related to compliance in the Acumatica space. So if you guys are ready, I am ready to go as well. So let's get cracking. Alrighty, everyone. So just getting started here. So my name is Connor O'Donnell, and I am Avalara's Acumatica specialist. So I deal with customers like yourself who are either on Acumatica currently or are transitioning over to Acumatica or are interested in purchasing Acumatica. So if you ever are interested in partnering with Avalara, I'll be your go-to person. So good to quote unquote meet all y'all. So we've got some good stuff in today's conversation. We're going to whiz through a lot of things just because of time, but I still want to get y'all a lot of good content in this session. So here's what we're going to tackle. So the first thing that we're going to do is review a study that was done by an objective third party about what the actual true cost of tackling compliance is manually in today's society. Um, from there, because we've got a variety of different folks from a lot of different industries, we're going to dive deep into the cost of compliance and how it differs in each sector. Afterwards, we're going to go into what our modern day Nexus requirements are. And Nexus, y'all, is just going to a business's requirements and obligation to register in a new state based off their business activities. We'll go into the ever so fun business implications of an audit. And if y'all are all starting to sweat and panic a little bit, because I said audit, don't worry, we'll finish up today's conversation, today's presentation, talking a little bit about technology adoption in a modern society, and then how specifically Avalara can help your business with sales tax automation. And like I mentioned before I started sharing my screen, at the end of today's conversation, we'll save about 5 minutes or so for any questions that might come up in today's session. Again, I can't see the questions right this second, so we'll make sure to have some dedicated time at the end. So let's start off with that survey I was referring to. So Potentiate is a third party that did a survey, and they spoke with hundreds of customers and companies to yield their findings. And as you can see in this findings included tab, there's a large scope of the metrics that were gauged in order to yield these results, like what companies' compliance activities are, what the frequency that they're remitting returns is, and how big that compliance team and the number of audits. So they really kind of made sure to make their scope as wide as possible. And I think a lot of y'all might be hopping on because you're interested in actually having some form of automation with your compliance processes. And you can see these are some of the main ways that companies like yourself actually tackle sales tax compliance today. Just anecdotally in my role, I find that more often than not, prospective customers who I speak with, they're doing this first one. They're doing the manual lookup. These customers might have one or two folks whose job is not solely compliance, but it's one of the many hats that they wear. And anecdotally, I do find that these employees want to take off that compliance hat as quickly as possible, which is what they call Avalara and why they speak with myself. So let's talk a little bit about what those company sizes looked like and some of their sales tax management presently. So this is looking at the spend each month. So I like this slide because it quantifies something intangible such as time spent and the spend that correlates with that time. So in this case, it's the time spent working on compliance. So we have some numbers from Potentiate that I'll highlight here. So as we're looking through some of these things, a vast majority of the ESB or emerging small businesses that were surveyed here, y'all, 3 or fewer employees with the mean, and again, it's a mean hourly range of $83 an hour, typically are working on sales tax. And on average, they're devoting about 131 hours to compliance. So if you put those two numbers together, these small businesses are spending a little under $12,000 a month on sales and use tax compliance. If we take it a level up and go to small to medium-sized businesses, they increase those numbers. So they have 2 to 5 employees who are working on sales tax, hourly wage about $98 an hour. And they're, again, increasing the numbers. They've got 163 hours that they're spending on sales tax compliance. So again, put those numbers together, we're about $17,000 a month on sales tax management. Those are some big numbers, right? So I can confidently say that the cost of Avalara will be significantly less than some of these numbers, $12,000 a month, $17,000 a month. I don't have a crystal ball, but I can feel very confident in saying our price will be less than that. And now we're talking about just actual hours spent. So you can see here, we break it down by all the different levels, because no different than the folks on today's call, you're dealing with a lot of different compliance aspects from use tax to remitting returns to exemption certificate management if you're a not non-taxable entity. And then they've got that sales tax and rates calculation. So you can see the amount of time that your employees are spending working on compliance. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the options that we have to alleviate that. And then this is just a slide that shows, you know, have these companies actually hired folks in order to support compliance, or have they gone out and outsourced it? So you can see it's relatively split 50-50. All right, so let's get into specifics, right? Because again, we've got a lot of folks from a lot of different industries here. So the findings from Potentiate showed that retailers and manufacturers are going to spend more on sales tax than other type of industries like software companies. Retail, of course, it's by and far they're spending the most, about 10,000 more than their second competitor, being manufacturers at $14,000 a month on sales tax compliance, using those metrics that we looked at the last two slides. Software companies are a very close third, just slightly below some of the metrics that we've got for manufacturers. So you can see across different industries, we're dealing with a lot of different time and spend on compliance. And again, this is the spend that those industries have with just external providers in general. It's not just sales tax providers like Avalara. So you can see actually manufacturers are willing to open up the wallet a little bit more for external providers. But when it comes to second, we've got a pretty close one with either retail or others, which others would most definitely encapsulate everyone on this call today. So now let's get into, we kind of set the scene. So let's talk a little bit about obligations to register in other states. This is where Avalara really provides our value add. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time here. So economic nexus, or nexus in general, you might or might not be familiar with it, but just giving you a quick rundown on it. Nexus is a business's obligation to register and remit in a state based off the business activities of that company. Where it gets tricky for businesses like yourself is that every single state has a different nexus threshold. So just because one nexus threshold for one state you work in is X, it does not mean it's also going to be X in a second state that you work in. So Avalara does have a tool within our dashboard that all customers have access to. And this tool is actually going to help you figure out where you have Nexus. We're going to monitor all the invoices that flow in from Acumatica up to our tax engine and give you kind of a heat map that's going to show where your Nexus is currently lying. And I will say, so we are currently doing a promo here at Avalara where if you ever have any questions about where your liability is, we're doing a free risk assessment through the end of the month, so end of September, where you can go through and actually complete an assessment that will tell you in which states you have liability, the amount of liability you have in that state. So think back taxes when I say liability. And then also we're going to give you recommendations of how you need to enter that state, whether it's through a simple state registration or if we need to do a level above with our amnesty program called a voluntary disclosure agreement. So if you all are interested in that, I'll have my contact information at the end of this. Happy to get you set up with it. And again, it's free. There's no strings attached. Sometimes when people hear free, they get a little nervous, like, what's it actually entail? This is free. And the nice part about it too, once you actually get your risk assessment results, you'll be able to sit down with our tax director team to walk through your results and go in a little bit more detail. So I know that a majority of the time when I'm talking with folks who deal with sales tax and have taxable sales, One of the big issues that they deal with is product taxability. And I know on today's conversation and today's webinar, we've got a variety of different industries present. So I wanted to show you just with some fun examples how the same product can be taxed differently based on small changes in those circumstances. So I'll just go through one or two of them just because it's a quick session. But um, if you're selling a bottle of water in Connecticut, it'll be taxable if it's sold in a convenience store, but if it's sold in a grocery store, it's going to be exempt, right? Very small nuances. But the nice part about it is that our tax engine called AvaTax is going to know these differences. So you never have to go through a state website and figure out if you have a 16-ounce bottle of water. Hey, is this taxable if I put this in a grocery store, or is it exempt if I put it in a convenience store, or vice versa? Our tax engine is going to know that and automatically align sales tax accordingly, and we're going to align the correct sales tax accordingly. I'll put your attention down to the bottom right-hand corner. So candy bars in Indiana. So they're taxable if they're Reese's, but if they are Kit Kat or Twix, it's exempt, which is good for me. I am a Twix guy myself. So again, our tax engine is going to know all of this. So no need for y'all to have any type of manual oversight. And again, I know with the boom in e-commerce in today's modern day marketplace, a lot of businesses are actually selling on these marketplaces like Amazon, Etsy, Walmart. And I wanted to bring it to your attention that most states, a majority of states, have now adopted laws where if you're selling through a third marketplace, you're triggering nexus, right? So it's creating liability for you if you're going through these third parties. So again, this is where Avalara's risk assessment comes into play, is that we're going to be able to identify for you where that liability lies. And then from there, we're going to be able to give you next steps of how to enter that state to get rid of any of that risk and allow you to continue to grow in that compliant manner. And again, a little bit more just kind of about selling on e-commerce sites, or if you're doing an online marketplace, there's some really interesting details and about how we're deeming out-of-state businesses, when it does come to these different vessels, I would say, or channels that people are selling. All right, so let's get to the big one here, audit. So I know when it comes to audits, a lot of you have experienced it, and I would imagine that's why some of you have hopped on today's session. Um, According to the survey that Potentiate did, 14% of all participants have received an audit in the last 5 years. On average, these audits are taking about 3 weeks. There is a small percentage that it's been dragged out to a little bit more on like the 5 months or more timeline, but the overwhelming majority, it's about 3 weeks. And within that time, on average, about 35 hours were spent overseeing and responding to an audit. So this is a very cumbersome process for you. It's taken away from your revenue generating activity. It's taken away from other type of priorities that you might be doing. So we've got some information, again, because we've got a variety of different companies here on today's call. So, the average time, the amount that people are spending on managing this audit process. So, just anecdotally, small businesses are less likely to be audited than small to medium-sized businesses. We're talking 9% versus 19%. But the interesting part about this is that when you're looking at these numbers, so you're looking at the orange column versus the gray column, um, there's about a 218% cost difference between the two industries. So it's definitely something where if you're a small to medium-sized business, you're at high risk for audit. And if we look at some of the reasons for the penalties, majority of these penalties are coming because of sales tax errors or missing exemption certs. So whether you're dealing with taxable customers or exempt customers, these are big indicators and reasons why you're receiving penalties. So that was a lot of information. So in the next couple of minutes, let me just talk to you a little bit about the adoption of technology and how Avalara can help out. Again, these survey results are essentially just saying that people are more willing in order to bring on technology in order to automate some of these previous manual processes. And that's where Avalara comes in as we start to end this webinar. So we've got a variety of different ways that we can help out. Sometimes people think of Avalara as just the sales tax calculation company. our service offerings are much greater and have much more depth than that. And that's really what I hope you get out of this webinar. Of course, we do have calculations, as you can see here on the left side, but we also will do will remit your returns to the state government. Documents, we're going to manage your exemption certificates for your non-taxable customers. If you deal at all with business licenses, Avalara has a tool where we can manage your licenses for you, actually request them, collect them, track them, manage them. And then these last two, so fiscal, we can deal with your use tax obligations and remit accordingly. And then for insights, we've got a product taxability tool that we help out with in order to give you all and any type of answers for your compliance questions. So we're really able to help out from an end-to-end compliance suite so that you all don't have to deal with that manually. All right, y'all. So as we wrap up here, my last real big slide here is that, as you can see here, there is a lot going on when it comes to compliance. There's almost a million different rules, if you see here on the left side, of tax content. There's over 82,000 tax rates. There's over 30,000 tax jurisdictions. I doubt you all want to deal with this yourself. I don't want to deal with that myself. So that's where Avalara can come in and help. We provide automation for something that should never have been a manual process. Prior to this boom in economic nexus and prior to the boom in the complexity of businesses, maybe it was a little bit more manageable, but as businesses grow, as e-commerce grows, you really need to have an automated solution to help you so you can grow compliantly without risk. So Avalara is really here to help out with anything and everything that you have here from that end-to-end compliance. All right, y'all. So I'm going to hop off here, but before I do, to go to any questions as we round out here, again, I just wanted to have this slide up here for a minute or two, just so y'all can snag my contact information if you do have any questions. Again, my name's Connor O'Donnell. I'm Avalara's Acumatica specialist. You can email me at any time at connor.o'donnell@avalara.com. And I'll be happy to set up an initial call with you to really go over the specifics of your business and figure out if Avalara would be a valuable partner to y'all. So I appreciate the time. I'm going to stop sharing just to see if any questions have popped up here while I was chit-chatting. All right, y'all. So it looks like we're good on questions. So we got 3 minutes. Nice. So we crushed the landing with that, y'all. So again, I just wanted to say thanks for everyone for their time today. I know there's different options for you in today's webinar, so I appreciate you spending some time talking about tax compliance. As we wrap up here, I just wanted to kind of do one more plug that Avalara is here to help out with all things compliance. Whether it's taxable, non-taxable, use tax, business licenses, product taxability, we can really help out. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or are interested in learning more about Avalara. But again, I'll let y'all hop off here. Appreciate the time today. I hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday, and thanks for your time and consideration of Avalara.